From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, be patient, the president urges Nigerians, writes House of Representatives seeking approval of 500 billion naira for palliatives to mitigate the impact of fuel subsidy removal. The military steps up the fight against illegal oil refining in the country as operatives of the Nigerian Navy destroy sites in the creeks of River State. Death toll from Saturday's killings in Ukum local government area of Benue State rises to 25. Governor Hyacinth Alia warns militia members to stop their activities or meet their end. And President Zelensky receives warm welcome at the first ever NATO meeting attended by Ukraine.
On business news tonight, Central Bank of Nigeria report shows total direct remittances into the country dropped to $952 million in the first half of 2023.
On sports news tonight, Tunisia's Ans Jabeur sends defending champion Elena Rybakina packing at Wimbledon with a 6-7, 6-4, 6-1 victory at the quarterfinal on open court.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, Senate is investigating the allegations of corruption in the capturing and payment of newly recruited university staff under the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Automated System.
We begin with the battle to rid the nation of oil theft, which is continuing with operatives of the Nigerian Navy destroying an illegal oil refining in the creeks of River State. The operation, which was led by the commander of the Nigerian Navy ship NNS Pathfinder, involved both gunboats and a helicopter navigating areas where artisanal refiners work. The illegal site is operated within the purview of the NNPC Limited's oil mining lease OML 18 site.
The boat ride from the Nigerian Navy ship Pathfinder is a long one. The operatives of the Navy are here on a mission to destroy an illegal oil refining site in Asari Toro local government area of River State. Leading the operation is the commander, who is himself piloting one of the gunboats to the illegal oil refinery in Kala Ekwama community of Asari Toro local government area of River State. A suspect is apprehended by the operatives, but she begs for mercy, explaining that this is her only means of survival.
Where the other people when they hide inside bush?
So I come alone, I know how to tell you.
Only you don't come here.
I come buy market, people they here. As they run, I know where we are go wrong, but I make a come outside.
So the people here, why you don't follow them?
Okay, I know fear or nothing to start life now. Nothing. I know the life for you, nothing again, no need to run.
So how much did you commit to this business?
152,000.
Where the money?
I usually give the lady, you get away once in the market, she don't run. Everything don't finish.
Commodore Suleiman Ibrahim explains how the site was discovered.
And just yesterday we had one of our assets, the naval helicopter, to do aerial patrols. And it was in the course of the patrols that we discovered this site. Immediately, gunboats were scrambled, and we had our personnel, they slept here actually. Throughout the night, they remained here so that none of these assets that is being used to steal crude will be taken away.
The chairman of Asari Toro local government area thanks the Navy and calls on NNPC Limited to tighten security in the area.
I want to really thank the Nigeria Navy for going there to do the clearing of that place. But we pray that NNPC, who is the owner of the oil wells, the manifolds and the oil wells there, should use this opportunity to come and lock up those illegal bunkering activity.
On the way back, a Navy helicopter sets ablaze another illegal refining site. While crude oil theft is a major issue in the state, questions remain about the reluctance of communities to volunteer information to security agents regarding the illegal activities.
Staying with security away from the oil theft in Benue State, the death toll from Saturday's killing set to have been carried out by local militia in Akuna village of Ukum local government area has risen to 25. This comes as Governor Hyacinth Alia is warning criminal elements in the 3 local government areas of Ukum, Katsina Ala and Logo to stop their activities or meet their end. The governor has visited the scene of the killings and warning that his administration will not tolerate any plan to negate his administration's resolve to build a positive image for the state.
Burnt houses, homesteads and general destruction is what the Akuna community in Ukum local government area of Benue State has been reduced to. Vehicles and business premises were not spared in the violent attack by local militia from the neighborhood, leaving at least 25 people dead. Governor Hyacinth Alia arrives at the scene of Saturday's attack to assess the level of damages as eyewitnesses and survivors share their ordeal.
They pursued us where we killed some of my brothers. About 25 like this, and so they are injuring. They are on the hospitals.
This aged man is heartbroken by the death of his son.
It's my son, my first son.
He was killed in the attack.
And he was killed in the attack. They're pushing him here almost a mile.
So how is the community surviving this, and who did these things?
The chief. They go there for bush.
During the meeting with the governor, the district head of the community gives a hint of what may have led to the attack.
I resisted their freedom in Bazon district to steal at the will. Other places, it is not like that. So I asked them on the phone. I told them that the only thing I would do is that I cannot take my districts and my responsibilities are handed over to thieves.
I'm coming back to do the burial when all the arrangements are made. And remember, I represent peace. Benue is a peaceful place, and we wouldn't want anything that will tarnish this image. These are killings from within. There's no one who came from outside to commit all these killings. It's you, my very brothers, killing each other, and that must stop.
The recent clashes around Benue State has left a huge dent in the socio-economic life of residents of affected communities. Finding a lasting solution to these issues appears to be on top of the list of the government and the community dwellers.
Meanwhile, troops of 3 Division of the Nigerian Army deployed to quell the crisis in Magu local government area of Plateau State have neutralized 3 bandits today. The Director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Onyema Nwachukwu, in a statement explained that the troops neutralized the criminals when they fought through an ambush staged by the bandits while responding to a distress call in Mangu general area. After successfully clearing of the ambush, the troops recovered 3 AK-47 rifles, 1 motorcycle and a constabulary police identity card, among other items. The Nigerian Army says the troops are currently on the trail of some of the bandits who escaped with gunshot wounds during the firefight. The president yesterday commiserated with family of the victims of the attack in Mangu local government area and parts of the state, directing security agencies to go after the perpetrators of the dastardly act. Away from security, it's not been business as usual for many Nigerians since the removal of fuel subsidy by the federal government. But the president is urging citizens to be patient and has promised that he will come up with palliatives to assuage their sufferings. President Bola Tinubu stated this during a meeting with the class of 1999 governors in the presidential villa. Our State House correspondent Gloria Mizuke reports.
It is a rekindling of memories as the class of 1999 governors converge on the council chamber for what is a first meeting with one of their own, now Nigeria's president. The president, Bola Tinubu, receives his colleagues gladly.
All of you, it's good to see you again. And for lucky to come back, I say I'm lucky.
They were the first set of states' chief executives upon the nation's return to democratic governance after a 16-year military interregnum. The president makes explicit his quest for a change as he promises subsidy palliatives.
Please help tell the people to be a little patient. The palliative is coming. I'm doing the arithmetic. I don't want even the cash transfers to fall into wrong hands. Right. So please, help persuade them to be a little patient. I know it pinches. I know it is difficult. But at the end of the day, we are going to all rejoice in the prosperity of this country. May God bless Nigeria.
Suing for peace in the country, the president sends former governor of Plateau to his people.
Things are getting gradually better. And I will appeal to Dari to please send a message back home to Plateau. The peace, the kind of peace that you have there, is desired now. We will do everything possible to stabilize the country. We have no reasons whatsoever killing ourselves. For what?
After over an hour behind closed doors, the chairman of the group and former governor of Edo State, Mr. Lucky Igbenedion, told State House correspondents that a number of issues such as unemployment and insecurity were also central.
We came to assure him that he has our full support and prayers for the bold steps he has started to take, for his initiatives, and also let him know that this is beyond party politics. We are not talking about the project Nigeria. Therefore, all hands must be on deck to give Mr. President the needed support and encouragement to foster a better country.
Now, this visit by the class of 1999 governors, totaling 26 out of 36 of them during the period in question, is clearly fundamental for the group, who also congratulate the president over his emergence as the ECOWAS chairman. Now, many of them who were members of the opposition party have now crystallized support for the president going forward. Separately, President Tinubu met with the president of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, who is accompanied by other members of the Senate. Other visitors to the president's office today include Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State and Dapo Abiodun of Ogun State. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, the president, in line with his promise, seeks 500 billion naira from National Assembly to tackle palliatives. We'll have that story and more in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If this has joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Be patient. The president urges Nigerians, writes House of Representatives, seeking approval of 500 billion naira for palliatives to mitigate the impact of fuel subsidy removal. The military steps up the fight against illegal oil refining in the country as operatives of the Nigerian Navy destroy sites in the creeks of River State. Death toll from Saturday's killings in Ukum local government area of Benue State rises to 25. Governor ICSAN warns militia members to stop their activities or meet their end. And President Zelensky receives warm welcome at the first ever NATO meeting attended by Ukraine. And in line with his word to address the impact of the fuel subsidy removal, the president has written to the House of Representatives seeking an amendment to the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. This is to allow the government source 500 billion naira for that purpose to be sourced from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819.5 billion naira. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, read the letter during plenary today.
Request for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. I write to request the approval of the House of Representatives for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act in accordance with the attached. The request has become necessary in order to, among other things, source for funds necessary to provide palliatives to mitigate the effect of the recent removal of fuel subsidy on Nigerians. Thus, the sum of 500 billion naira only has been extracted from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819,536,937,815 naira only for the provisions of palliatives to Nigerians to cushion the effects of fuel subsidy removal. While I hope that the House of Representatives will consider this request expeditiously, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration. Signed, Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Well, staying with stories regarding the presidency, one of the things Nigerians are anxiously waiting to see from President Bola Tinubu is an official list of who will be working with him in the Federal Executive Council. But perhaps more importantly for the citizens is the quality of persons that will form part of the cabinet, given the myriad of challenges the country is facing. In this next report, our correspondent Jeffrey Ozono examines the expectations and quality of cabinet members as highlighted by citizens as well as lawmakers.
The 60-day window for the president to nominate his cabinet for confirmation by the Senate is closing in, and that window officially closes on July the 27th in line with the 5th alteration of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The country is in dire straits wherever you turn when you look at the economic indices, to security, infrastructure, among others, and therefore demands the best and brightest minds to advise and work with President Bola Tinubu. While we wait for the president's nominees and besides the argument of a cabinet of national unity, diversity and inclusion, what kind of men and women does Nigeria need as members of cabinet at this time? Some persons propose a composition of more technocrats with capacity, competence, and proven track record over leaning towards political patronage and partisanship.
This is not the era of putting politicians to run this country. That has been tried over time and it has not worked. So this time around, we should know that there are people who have, on their skills in other sphere of life, apart from politics. And they have run their own business, they have succeeded in it. This is the time to give such chance and opportunity.
Like any soup, you need many ingredients to make a perfect soup. And I think Nigeria has always had the ingredients to make perfect soup, but a lot of the time the cooks have been poor. So let's just hope that the president is a good cook, can give us a good soup that everybody will enjoy.
For some of the lawmakers at the National Assembly, competence is key.
we want to put square pegs in square holes this time, so that Nigeria will begin to manage itself, handle its problems, and have people who are oriented towards having a better Nigeria.
The key thing that should drive the list should be competency, the experiences and the exposure of those that will make the list should be of utmost importance to the #1 man.
While some of their colleagues propose a hybrid of technocrats and politicians.
We're expecting a complete blend, mixture of technocrats and politicians. You can't have 100% technocrats and leave politics. So it must be a hybrid version of great politicians and great technocrats.
For public affairs analyst Mr. Eze Onyekwere, the size of the cabinet should be reduced to cut costs.
We don't need 42 ministers, as is being rumored that the president will appoint. Since the constitution says give one to every state, let's stop at 36. We don't need 1,000 personal assistants, SAs and PAs to the president or to the governors.
The Federal Executive Council, made up of at least one person from each state of the Federation, is vested with executive powers to carry out its responsibilities. And some Nigerians believe that in choosing a cabinet, the idea that longevity in the political space confers competence is a weak proposition. Therefore, President Bola Tinubu should go for the best minds across board. Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
Well, now we're off to the nation's capital, where my colleague has more stories. Hi, Victor. It's over to you.
Hello, Millicent. Thank you very much, and welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja, where we begin with legal matters, as Justice Zubairu Mohammed of the Federal Capital Territory High Court has restrained the federal government, its employees, agents, and officials from trespassing or demolishing Trademore Estate, Abuja. Justice Mohammed also ordered all parties to maintain status quo, while the motion and notice and writ of summons should be served on the defendants. Counsel to Trademore Estate, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Michael Zekome, had filed a suit against some federal government agencies who had threatened to demolish the estate over continued flooding. Trademore Holdings in the main suit complained to the court about earlier illegal demolitions of buildings belonging to the occupants of the estate by agents of the federal government when it was crystal clear that the flooding experienced since it was built in 2007 was caused by acts of gross negligence by the defendants and not the occupants. Justice Zubairu Mohammed thereafter adjourned the hearing on the motion of notice to September the 22nd. And to the National Assembly, where the Senate is to investigate allegations of corruption associated with the capturing and payment of newly recruited university staff under the Integrated Payroll and Personal Automated System, IPPIS. The upper chamber resolved to embark on this investigation after considering a motion by Senator Ifeanyi Uba, who says that in many federal government universities, staff employed as far back as 2020 are yet to be captured on IPPIS platform and are therefore not being paid their salaries. Infrastructure development in Rivers State seems set to take a new dimension as the government has formally awarded the contract for the construction of the Port Harcourt Ring Road. It is described as a landmark project that is projected to create new cities and expand the socio-economic opportunities in the state, and is also billed to be completed in 3 years. The contract, worth 200 billion naira, was awarded to Julius Berger Nigeria Limited following the signing of the agreement at the Executive Council chamber of the Government House in Port Harcourt today.
Days after the passing of a supplementary budget for a road construction, the endorsement of the documents at the Executive Council chambers of the Rivers State Government House signals the award of contract by the state government to Julius Berger Nigeria Limited for the construction of the 200 billion naira Port Harcourt Ring Road.
Attorney General of Rivers State.
The 50.15-kilometer road network comes with 6 flyovers and 1 river crossing bridge, which will cut across 6 local government areas of Port Harcourt, Obiakpo, Ikwere, Eche, Eleme and Okrika. There's a 3-year completion plan from the moment the project is flagged off, and to demonstrate his seriousness, the governor makes a commitment to pay 70% of the contract sum the moment this event ends. He warns traditional rulers and youths in the benefiting local government areas against sabotaging his administration's efforts.
On our part as a government,
we will meet our own obligation. After this event, we're paying you. The total value of the contract is 195.3, and we're paying you 77% of it. Let me make this statement very clearly. The community chiefs, the traditional rulers there, must cooperate with you.
For the contractor handling the project, it's another opportunity to add value to the development of River State.
We commend the River State government for this, and we are honored to be chosen partners again for construction of the vision by the new executive governor of River State.
A media briefing is held immediately after the contract signing ceremony to give more detail on the direction of the project.
The road is a total of 50.15 kilometers of dual carriageway. Now, of the 50.15 kilometers, 45 kilometers is dual carriageway. And then we have 6 flyovers and 1 river crossing bridge.
The Port Harcourt Ring Road project is described as the state's most structurally complex and most expensive single road project yet. But the government is confident that new communities will be opened up along the way while attracting more economic development to River State.
Our central bank report shows total direct remittances into the country drops to $952 million in the first half of 2023. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, today is the 10th World Malala Day, a day that gives countries around the world an opportunity to look into policies that protect the rights of young women and girls to get quality and safe education. It is also a day that commemorates the shooting of young Malala Yousafzai, the then 15-year-old who was shot as she rode home after taking an exam in Pakistan's Swat Valley. This year, Malala is visiting Nigeria to increase advocacy at several levels of government on the protection of the rights of young girls and women. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
On the 9th of October 2012, a Taliban gunman shot Malala Yousafzai as she rode home on a bus after taking an exam in Pakistan's Swat Valley. Though she survived the attack, she was marked for death because of her continuous advocacy for the education of young girls in her country, Pakistan. But young Malala remained undeterred, fueled by the support of her parents, especially her father, Zainuddin Yousafzai, who is also an education activist. It is now the 10th celebration of the United Nations declared World Malala Day. It began with a visit to the office of the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, who restates the Tinubu administration's commitment to girl-child education and protection. This is Malala's third visit to Nigeria, and she tells State House correspondents that when it comes to girl-child education, a lot has improved since our last 2 visits.
Our ask here in Nigeria is that government, all states and all party members make a commitment to ensure that every child in Nigeria has access to a complete education, which includes senior secondary education as well, that every child has access to a free and quality education.
The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, who's leading this UN delegation, sheds more light on the importance of this advocacy, considering Nigeria's peculiar circumstances.
We have a large number of out-of-school children. We know that the quality of education is not what every child should have in this country. And the advocacy to an administration that is coming in, that believes in education, is an important timing.
The delegation makes their way out of the State House and heads to the United Nations House, where young girls and girl education advocacy groups from across the nation have been invited to draw some courage from Malala's story and her special message to them.
We must ask those who claim to care about gender equality and education why their budgets and policies do not match their words. We must call again and again every opportunity for leaders to prioritize education.
The commemoration of World Malala Day will definitely throw up a plethora of issues, a lot of which will be discussed around the world today. But one of the most important lessons to be learned from the story of this now 26-year-old woman is the power in the voice of one young woman if she has the support that she needs to express herself. And that's a lesson many families have been urged to learn, especially fathers in Nigeria. From the UN House in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital, but the news at 10 continues with Millicent in Lagos. Millicent, take it home.
Thank you. Many thanks, Victor. In other stories, the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, GEAP, has appointed Nigeria's former Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, as global advisor to assist GEAP's mission of accelerating clean energy deployment in developing countries. According to the Energy Alliance, the international appointment, which was announced at an event in Lagos, underlines its commitment to partnering with governments and communities across Africa, Asia, Latin America and the Caribbean to transition to clean energy.
It is now that GEAP is coming to address the issue of energy, to address...
The Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, GEAP, an international coalition of local entrepreneurs, governments, technology and financing partners, is actualizing its mission to enable emerging economies' shift to clean energy and pro-growth model. The multinational agency, which is funded by the Rockefeller, IKEA Foundation and the Bezos Earth Fund, has made good on its partnership with governments to enhance the renewable energy sector, with the appointment of Nigeria's former vice president as its global advisor barely 2 months after he left office. Professor Osinbajo, who said he's honored by the appointment, commends the organization for supporting developing countries to shift to clean energy, adding that GEAP's vision for change is ambitious.
First, in terms of creating the coalitions and partnerships that are important, and this is so globally, all over the world. But I think it is more so where, and you'll find in many parts of the developing world in particular, there's a need for governments to understand, and this is so, and perhaps not just in the developing world, for governments to understand the economic opportunities that lie in climate action.
On his part, the Chief Executive Officer of GEAP, Simon Hawford, describes Osinbajo as a role model for public service, explaining that his broad global network and relationships will be a valuable catalyst for the organization's mission of accelerating the adoption of clean energy in developing countries.
We know that His Excellency can and wants to support us with are where his experience and strengths are. Working with governments around the world to help them be more effective at their role. It's complicated. Driving an energy transition works across ministries, it works across agencies. It is not easy at a government level. And His Excellency is a role model of how to get things done and progressing in a difficult government environment. He can help us learn, and he can help our other partner governments accelerate their work on that.
In addition to his global advisory role at GEAP, Professor Osinbajo will also continue his activity as a leading advocate for just energy transitions in Africa, including scaling up Africa's share of the global carbon market via the Africa Carbon Markets Initiative.
And the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria has officially installed Mrs. Funmi Ekundayo as its 29th president. In her acceptance speech, Mrs. Ekundayo promised to strengthen the capacity of members of the institute. She becomes the first female president and chairman of the Governing Council of ICSAN since its establishment.
This hall is filled to capacity as important personalities gather for the investiture ceremony of Mrs. Funmi Ekundayo as the 29th president of ICSAN. Family, friends and associates of Mrs. Ekundayo are also here as she becomes the first female president of the institute.
I have have no other duty or responsibility from this moment and onward but to lead and leave ICSAN stronger, greater, and more prosperous than we met it.
MD and CEO of Lotus Merchant Bank, Mrs. Kafilat Araoye, who gives the keynote address, calls for equal representation premised on competence.
If the board does well, institutions get stronger and more productive, leading to long-term sustainable development. It is important, however, in all this, not to compromise competence. I get out where people say, oh, you got a chance because you covered a quota system. No, it still must be merit-driven, even in our bid to achieve diversity and inclusiveness. Equal opportunity for all is all we're saying.
And then comes congratulatory messages.
Mrs. Fumi Ekundayo, one of the most diligent, one of the most enterprising people that you can find.
You have pioneered a novel occurrence in the history of the Institute, which is highly applaudable.
The new president also promises to, among other things, strengthen the capacity of ICSAN.
At ICSAN, it is also built in such a way that subsequent governments build on existing legacies, which we plan to do. And there are a lot of other areas of focus that we also have as an administration. One of those areas is to actually continue to strengthen the capacity of our members, to continue to deliver value to different ecosystems and different value chains across the spectrum of private and public environments, particularly at this critical stage that we are as a nation, when we're trying to rebuild, we're trying to, reset.
Born in Lagos, Mrs. Fumi Ekundayo is wearing many caps as a lawyer, chartered secretary and administrator, corporate governance professional, chartered stockbroker, and capital markets practitioner.
Time now for business news. Here's Anne Wilder.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial star cash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. A new report coming from the Central Bank of Nigeria shows that the country received a total of $952 million as direct remittances from Nigerians abroad between January and June this year. The half-year 2023 remittances contained in the CBN's International Payment Report represent 21% decline when you compare it to $1.21 billion recorded in the same period last year, and experts have attributed this decline to remittances in the first half to several factors like election uncertainty and forex policies. And more facts are emerging regarding the largest single-week transaction for First Bank since 2012, which sources say is worth about 100 billion naira, including share sales and other costs. This transaction has dominated market discussions, disrupting the status quo as Nigeria's oldest bank and reintroducing a power player into the bank and its holding company. According to a statement signed by Black House Media, over 4.7 billion First Bank shares valued at 87 billion naira, which occurred between July the 6th and 7th, were acquired by Barbican Capital Limited, an affiliate company of Honeywell Group established 50 years ago. Well, in that statement, it adds that FBN Holdings and regulatory authorities had been notified of this acquisition. In a published letter on Monday, July the 10th, to the chairman of FBN, Obafemi Otudeko, he explains that Honeywell Group Limited is a dedicated long-term investor committed to investing in great businesses with immense growth potential. Our approach involves working closely with stakeholders with a shared vision to foster the creation and enhancement of value for all. We understand that this requires time and patience. Our intention is to follow this approach in respect of our investment in FBN Holdings, an iconic institution which we greatly respect and with which we have a deep and long-term relationship as customers, investors, and board member. Mr. Otudeko also reiterates Honeywell Group's intention to work with all stakeholders to create value for all shareholders. In his words, we enjoy long-standing personal relationships with the company's other key shareholders, and we look forward to leveraging these relationships as we collectively work towards enhancing the value of FBN Holdings plc. In this light, a meeting is expected between the Barbican and Honeywell team and FBN Holdings. However, that date is yet to be confirmed. Meanwhile, FBN Holdings' market capitalization has appreciated by 116.66 billion naira following that purchase, which happened last week. And talking about the market, we head to the domestic one now, where market recorded fast pullback this week. Investors and trading sentiments took a negative turn at the close of business today. John Nepa has the details.
Thank you so much, Anne. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, a big pullback after many sessions of positive trade is a norm. You know, investors are profit-taking after their hard-earned investments. So this is a normal circle. So we see the all-share index down 2.47% at 65,046.93. We also see the market cap take that hit, reflecting here at 34 instead of 35 trillion naira we've been having, 34.874 trillion naira. Now, who is the market mover? Who did this to the market? Well, we're now familiar with Dangote Cement. Dangote Cement has been leading the market into the positive end for a bit, so I guess it's time for profit taking also. So today it lost 34 naira 70 kobo. Remember, it's gained about 30 naira twice, 2 different sessions. So it's time to take profits, and it closed at 326 naira at the close of trade today. Another market mover today is FBN Holdings, and it shared 2 naira 15 kobo from its share price. And we do know some of the drama that has been going on about acquisition of its aggregate shares for some time now. I guess that's affecting investors' sentiment also. But looking at the activity chart for today, we see it's green, a bit of recovery from what happened. Unfortunately, most of this activity that we see today is profit-taking. But at least let's let the bear have some wins some days. Well, I do hope the bear will not be here for a very long time. We hope to, well, replace it very soon. But for now, it's the bear. It's a bear market today. And that's the stock market report. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, Ini. Let's take a look at closing numbers from other major markets around the world. That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Millicent.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Anne. Coming up next on the news at 10, President Zelensky receives warm welcome at the first ever NATO meeting attended by Ukraine. That's in Around the World in 5. We'll return. Let's go over to Simon Pusey with other international stories and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. President Volodymyr Zelensky has been warmly welcomed at the first ever NATO meeting attended by Ukraine.
Welcome to this first meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Council. This is truly a historic moment, allies and Ukraine sitting side by side as equals to address our common vision of Euro-Atlantic security.
NATO boss Jens Stoltenberg says Ukraine is closer to NATO than ever before and said Ukraine will become a member without specifying a specific timeline. It comes after Zelensky criticised NATO for what he sees as delays in admitting the country to the alliance. Japanese and South Korean officials say North Korea has fired a suspected intercontinental ballistic missile. The long-range missile flew for more than an hour before landing short of Japanese waters on Wednesday morning. Pyongyang's launch comes after it threatened retaliation against what it said were recent US spy plane incursions over its territory. Earlier this week, it threatened to shoot down such planes. Washington has dismissed the accusations, saying its military patrols are in line with international law. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has visited the West Bank city of Jenin days after 3 of his senior officials were forced to flee a funeral by crowds furious at their response to an Israeli assault days earlier. The 87-year-old, who has rebuffed pressure to step down, visited the cemetery where the funeral was held at the entrance of the Jenin refugee camp. Flanked by his special presidential guards, he addressed the crowds at the edge of the camp, which has witnessed the biggest Israeli operation in the occupied West Bank in 20 years. He told cheering crowds that the camp will be rebuilt. Banned protests have taken place in Kenya, with police firing tear gas at crowds gathered at grounds in the capital Nairobi, where opposition veteran Raila Odinga was expected to address his supporters. Demonstrators in the slums say they are angered by President William Ruto's government. The government says tax hikes, which include a doubling of the fuel tax and introduction of a levy to fund affordable housing, will raise an extra 200 billion Kenyan shillings a year and are needed to deal with growing debt repayments and to fund job creation initiatives. At least 6 people were killed last Friday during protests against the taxes.
Again, you see, like young guys, they were crying that they promised, Mr. President, you promised them that you are going to help them, but you didn't. Again, Mama Mboga. So we are just crying, we love you, but we are crying if you can help us.
Despite the protests, Iran's President Ebrahim Raisi has received a red carpet welcome from Kenyan counterpart William Ruto as he began a 3-country tour of Africa that Tehran has touted as a new beginning in relations with the continent. Raisi's trip to Africa, which will also take him to Uganda and Zimbabwe, is the first by an Iranian president in more than a decade and represents a bid to diversify economic ties in the face of crippling US sanctions. At a press briefing after meeting William Ruto, Raisi said he wanted to boost commercial ties with African countries. Eyewitness video shows flash floods in the southern Russian town of Nebug after heavy rains and high winds hit the region. The footage shows cars being carried as floodwaters stream down the streets in the city. Hundreds of people have reportedly been evacuated as torrential rains caused flash flooding in the area, with rising water levels affecting towns and small villages. The flooding has caused some damage to properties, but there have been no immediate reports of injuries or fatalities. And among the solemn and serious talks of NATO, there have been a few jokes and smiles. Neither the UK nor Australian Prime Minister could resist adding to the competitive climate between the country's cricket fans during their bilateral meeting. Both came armed with gifts to exchange, but also took the opportunity to remind one another of the oldest and fiercest rivalry in the sport. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
It's time for sports. The 6th seed Ons Jabeur gained revenge against defending champion Elena Rybakina in a rematch of last year's Wimbledon final. The Tunisian came from a set down to defeat Rybakina 6-7, 6-1, 6-1 to reach the last 4 and will now face Aryna Sabalenka for the place in the final. And world number 2, Aryna Sabalenka, poured into a second semi-final with a straight-set victory over Madison Keys of the United States. The Belarusian, a semi-finalist in 2021, came through 6-2, 6-4 in the quarterfinals in 87 minutes. That's it on sports. Millicent, is back to you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu today appealed to Nigerians to be patient as he sent a letter to the House of Representatives seeking approval of 500 billion naira for palliatives to mitigate the impact of fuel subsidy removal. That's news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night.